to hold the tank in position, but I'm pretty certain you'll be able to make some brackets up yourself to hold the tank in securely. If you've bought a hood from us, or you're going to fit a hood, then as you build the car, it's important that you bear this in mind, that you're going to want to fit a hood. Basically, the measurement that you need from the front edge of the windscreen over the rollover bar and down to the back panel should be 66 inches. So that's the perfect measurement that you're looking for, 66 inches. So make sure that you fit the windscreen far enough back so that if you do fit a hood, the hood will fit without any problems. Regards to the SVA test and the internal projections, these are really important, and we have told you to fit the donor vehicle's wheel because that is correct, and the main reason for that is there is an area around the wheel that is exempt from projections. So an area past the outside diameter of the wheel is exempt, so it means more of the area behind the wheel you haven't got to worry about. For instance, that switch is a problem because it isn't sufficiently rounded off. So for the SVA test, that switch wouldn't be fitted, or you'd fit it just there, which would be behind the wheel, and it wouldn't count. We look at the snap-on finisher on the edge of the bonnet, that's in order. Obviously things like the gear knob, there's no problem at all with those, and the cover for the body side, there's no problem with those. We've rounded that off, that's great. You would definitely find that those heater controls would be not suitable for the SVA test, and you'd also find that that was too sharp an edge on that dashboard. So we'd ask you to put on some some pipe lagging that you use to protect ordinary domestic water heater pipe from the frost. That would go on the edge of that and be covered in leather cloth, and that would cover that. The windscreen, as you know now, if you fitted it, is rounded, so that's all right. But you may find that although the mirror that you've used is E-marked, that they may still decide that those were too sharp corners. So you'd have to round those corners off, or put a little bit of plastic beading round that. We have found that examiners have failed cars on the actual cross, on a crosshead screw, or the slot in a slotted screw. This is obviously wrong. I don't feel they can fail it on that, but obviously you may want to fill all your screws with silicone sealer. The snap-on edging that goes on the edge of the doors, that needs to go on the pillars if you were to fit the pillars, but remember we've told you not to fit those for the SVA test. Exhaust system, or whether you have our twin tube system, in the kit you'll get a piece of stainless that's formed at the edges like that for the heat protector. It's flat. You've got to form it. So very simply, all you do is you're forming it like this to curve it to go round the silencer. So it's a little bit tricky. Perhaps you want to wear some gloves so you don't cut your hands on the sharp metal, but you're rolling it round like that. Try not to make it like a thrapney bit. So you're forming it round like that, and then it will go round your silencer, if that's your silencer. It then goes round your silencer like so, and then you'll simply bolt that together, 3 bolts along there, which will obviously go underneath the silencer. Okay, we see now, is that clear? We see now that because of the way this silencer is formed, there are rings around it like that that keep the main the main heat protector from the body of the silencer. If you have our stainless steel silencer, that hasn't got those rings on it, so we do give you 2 rings in the kit. So you'll see you've got 2 rings that's around about the same diameter as the silencer. They go round the stainless steel silencer to hold the heat protector off. We go now to the silencer on the car. You'll see that we've put some of the plastic edge trim that goes around the front edge of your bonnet around the edge of the heat protector so that it's not sharp, and we've just cut a little bit out of it so as it goes around that bracket that's welded onto the silencer. Remember, for the SVA test you may need to round off the edge of that tube with a file or a mini grinder where it comes out. It is made from quite a thick tube, so you can just round it off to give you a 3mm radius.
Okay.
For those of you who have got seat belts in your kit or are fitting seat belts, then the fitting is pretty straightforward. Your chassis will either have a single rear fixing or a twin rear fixing, and the seat belts you've been given will suit the chassis. They're straightforward. Make sure you put the correct bolts through them and make sure there's a locking nut on them. With regard to the lower fixing, the one on the outside of the chassis is straightforward, as there's a hole through that plate just there that you'll put the inner fixing to. Again, make sure you put a nylon locking nut on the other side of it. To the inside fitting of the seat belt, you'll remember that you've already fitted a piece of 2-inch angle underneath the car that picks up the handbrake anchorage point. That is the same piece of angle that you will drill to put the centre seatbelt mount into. So what will happen is that the fixing will go through the floor, through the return bottom of the tunnel side, and then through the angle. So that is quite substantial, and that will comply with the directions of the inspectorate with regards to the hat you've got on. Is it? Oh,
yeah, that's what I was laughing at.
You think you're trying to be a reindeer with that?
Don't even like that, because I used to think we're good.
With regards to the driver's left-hand fixing, this fixing goes through the bottom of the tunnel, through the floor, and then squarely through the 2-inch angle that runs underneath the car that picks up the handbrake. Obviously you've bolted this on well and substantially, so that is adequate for the seatbelt fixing. And those of you who have fitted the inertia reel type seatbelt from the donor vehicle, those 2 lower fixings can also be used as well. We're close now to the end of this video, and I'm going to carry on and go over all the points that you've raised so that every question that you've got is answered. No doubt there will be 1 or 2 that we will miss, but I'll do my best. Just remind you to redo the index. That's quite important. The index is quite an important thing for you, so you can get straight to the point that you want to cover and not have to watch all this again. The carpet we've supplied, it isn't the best carpet in the world. It is very easy to fit, but on hard wearing parts like the floor, it's a good idea to put a rubber mat. Painting the chassis, I'm asked a lot about that. Basically, we've had a lot of success recently with a bare metal primer that is black. It can be brushed on, or it can be over thin with cellulose thinners and sprayed. It does for all kinds of things, but it's a lot cheaper than having the chassis powder coated. We found that powder coated isn't that successful these days. make sure, as we've said before, you degrease the chassis well, because it has got a protective oil coating on, and you etch it up, grind the welds down where they're seen, and then you can apply a couple of coats of this. It does honestly stick to the metal well. The main advantage being that if you don't want to do anything else with it, you can just leave it as a matte black. If you can't get it locally, we can supply it for you at £20 a gallon. 1 gallon will do 5 or 6 Robin Hood 2Bs. This is a gallon of 5. This is a 5 litre tin. Okay, so it's 5 litres for £20. Your louver have been placed in position so that they look cosmetically correct. It does so happen that the rear of the louvers, the rear sets, do come directly into the cockpit of the car. So unless you're going to vent these with a small door to get fresh air into the car, if you get too hot in the summer, then you will need to block off the back louvers. This can simply be done by just a very flat piece of 0.7 material. Just glue it directly underneath the louvers on the underside of the bonnet on the back too. Rear lights, we've told you the position of the rear lights, they've got to go there, and one of the favourite things for failing on the SVA with the lights is the fact that the fog lamp is too close to the rear combination lamps. There is a measurement, it has to be suitably far away so it's not mixed up. So if you look on our brochure again, you'll see our yellow car, and that's showing the fog lamp or a pair of fog lamps on the back panel directly underneath the filler cap, hanging down below. So that's where we suggest you put the one fog lamp that we've given you is on the back panel below the line of the body. Any regulations that cover reversing lamps, you're not forced to have them, and they're not forced to work, and they're not forced to be marked, so that's entirely up to you. Your MOT check, go around all the nuts that could be suspect, make sure they're tightened. Nuts like the 10mm nuts on your brake calipers, they're the kind of things that could vibrate loose. Make sure they're tightened, and in the event of a newly built kit car, don't wait for a year to do these checks. Do them pretty soon, do them after 1,000 miles or a couple of months. Go around and check them all. Inside. We're very close now to having this car finished, and I've already been out on a bit of a test drive in it and created a snag list of the things that need doing. One of the things was a wiper mechanism was making a noise, and these two technicians here are trying to solve a little bit of a clicking, two brains together here. Can't quite decide what they're going to do. Cut it down. What about hammer? Will that help? Eh? Hammer. Gina, did you get it whizzing round so they could see it? You got that?
Yeah, we got that.
Okay. Right, I'll keep on talking then. All right, ready? On the snag list, there were several things that needed doing. The headlamps were wobbly. We've tightened those up, but not that tight that we can't still adjust them at the SVA centre. So you just want to be like that, just so that you can move them. We lifted up these lock nuts here that needed lifting up a little bit to lift the suspension slightly higher. and we found out the wheels were loose, the wheels were ready to come off halfway around the test drive, although I had visions of all kinds of things happening, and one of them that's happened to me before was that there was no oil in the gearbox or the differential. During the course of building the car it had run out. So we've got it back now, we've topped the oil up for the diff and the gearbox. Remember, there's no drain plugs on these, you just take the bungs out the side and fill them to until the oil runs out again. There was one or two little creaks and groans that we looked at. It got a misfire and we swapped the plug leads, just threw the plug leads away and got some new plug leads. We fixed that. We've checked the oil, the water, we've checked that, the brake fluid, we've checked that. We've bled the brakes again because there's a little bit of air in the brakes. So we're ready now to go again out in it for another test drive. While the bonnet's up, you can see that we've just put some small self-tapping screws through the fan legs into the base of the radiator, into the radiator frame. That's worked quite well. And we haven't yet put the grill on, but remember, for the bonnet catch you'll operate that with a little bit of a stick through the grill holes. We've put the original bonnet prop there off the donor vehicle. We've got that holding the bonnet up. And we've noticed that we've trimmed away the nose cone at the front like that to clear the radiator, and we've put some snap-on edging on that just to finish it off. We noticed there was a bit of a noise coming from the timing belt cover, and that had got damaged while we fitted the engine, so just for simplicity we've taken that off totally. But just be a little bit careful, you really ought to have that on in case you get your tie trapped in the timing belt while you're looking over the engine. Eventually we will take some foam out of the rear seats and glue it underneath the bonnet, so when the bonnet comes down it does make a good seal against the firewall panel. Some other items that I must mention to you while we're standing here like this, and there is a question that if there's any slight blowholes in the welding on the chassis, then water could percolate through those miniature holes and go into the chassis tubes. So the last thing we'd want, particularly on a mild steel car, would be to have chassis tubes full of water. So it's a good idea to drill the chassis tubes, each tube on the chassis, with a 1/4 inch hole somewhere on the lower section of the car, so that if any water does accumulate in the chassis, it can drain out. On the same subject of drilling, when you're drilling, make sure you drill slowly and at a low speed, or stop and start if necessary, particularly with the stainless steel. That's quite difficult to drill. You'll see that on the front of here we put some, to hide that area there, to finish that off round there, and for the SVA on the bottom track control arms and on those chassis tubes we put some drive shaft gaiters which have finished off and made it look quite neat. In your kit you'll get a little 3-pronged star. That is a baffle for the exhaust. If you find that for the SVA test your silencer a little bit noisy, then you can just poke that baffle up the end of the silencer, and that will help quite neat. If you really want to make a terrific job, then you can put some of your wife pot scouring pads in first, not wire wool, but those turned brass or copper pot scouring pads before they're first, and that will quieten your exhaust down for the SVA. But now that we're pointing the silencers towards the ground, we're having less problems with examiners. But remember, just make sure that the machinery that they're using has got a certificate and it's been calibrated properly. Ask to see it if you're not certain. You'll see that we've put one mirror on this car, a spring-back mirror. That's there, correct for the SVA test. You'll see plenty out of it. Don't be tempted to put the mirror any lower than that, because you'll obviously, all you'll get is a back wing. You can see that we've masked off a tramliner masking tape and put a dummy bonnet shut line there, which cosmetically looks quite attractive, and that's roughly 4 inches from the end of that pillar forward.
But it's only ticking.
These are the brand new Robin Hood bonnet safety catchers, made of rubber and stainless steel, really effective, work really well. These over centre catchers, fasten them on with small nuts and bolts or self-tapping screws. You'll see the other half that's on the bonnet. The operator has only put one screw in. That gives him a chance, if it's not quite right, to move the screw up and down and put another screw to fix it in the correct position. Obviously the bonnet catch will cover up the mistakes he's made. You can see that snap-on edge in there, just comes along there and just finishes that off nicely. With these flasher lamps, we've mounted these directly onto the nose cone, exactly halfway up the grill aperture and about 4 inches back. Some SVA examiners are interpreting the regulations slightly different to me, and we have supplied, therefore we've supplied you some little strips of metal with a hole each end that you'll bend into a bracket to extend these out further. The person that was responsible for this luggage compartment cover at the back has really spent a little bit too much time on it and gone over the top. He's gone over his budget as far as time concerned. He's gone on and he's covered this fiberglass with grey leather cloth, and he's made a really good job of it, better than what I could have done. And you can see, excuse me, that he's hinged the lid like that with the hinges that you'll get, a little bit of carpet on the inside, and although it doesn't lock and it won't lock, it looks really neat, and probably that's without any doubt the best Robin Hood spare wheel luggage compartment cover we've had yet. If you really went to town, you could probably make some little gutters there to catch the rain, to stop the rain running in, but we'd like to think that if it rained you'd have the hood on. This car, remember, has got the original Ford Sierra fuel tank in there, and there's still quite a bit of room in there to put luggage and bits and pieces that you might need. Just remember that if you are putting stuff in the back of a Robin Hood, don't get things like a bottle jack or a set of heavy spanners that could zoom backward when you accelerate and dent the panel. So line it inside before you put these on, so that it gives some protection if things rattle about. Bottles of wine and tins of beer and anything like that you might want to carry. On this last little bit of the video, my colleague has just pointed out to me that it's possible we may not have done the petrol cap. Remember that your rear panel has got a daisy flower shaped hole, and what actually happens is you have to bend the tags over of that hole like that, and then you offer the petrol cap up, and it has 7 screws in it. 4 of them are dummy, already in the cap, and we give you 3 more with nuts, and that goes through there, and the 3 that we give you go through the holes in the petrol tank neck, and it is quite obvious to see how it operates when you put it all together. So don't over tighten those screws, and they work quite well. Remember, there's a little grub screw that you'll need, a grub self-tapping screw that you'll need to put in the neck at the very top, that will act as a keeper for the catch. Just while we're at the back of the car, I'm not quite sure if we covered it, but there is a flat strip of metal that's got one end rounded, the same as a number plate lamp. That's turned into a P-clip for the number plate bracket. Test drive, we've been out once, we're on the second test drive, we've rectified a few things, we've let the tyres down a little bit, and we've fixed the wheel nuts, obviously, bits and pieces that were faulty before. So we're on the second test drive, we'll see how it goes, we'll get a couple of shots for you, particularly pay attention how well it goes over the speed bumps. circle. It really does feel good at this stage. Short your sump on robinhood. All rubbish. I'll just take this point to remind you that we do have hoods for these robin hoods, £370 including VAT, and that is for a hood, the hood frame, all the fasteners and 2 side screens. They really are high quality, and on days like this they're really useful. That's it.
I think so.
Go back and look at it. Go for it, kiddo.